Welcome back to Reddit Revenge. Today's tale starts right now. Fresh out of grad school, I landed what felt like a dream. An art teacher post at a Title I elementary I could literally walk to. Mid-20s, sketchbook in my bag. I pictured bulletin boards, paint-splattered aprons, and kids who believed a cardboard tube could be a telescope. La La Land hid the warning signs. A week before school, I'd called and emailed the office. No reply. I pinged the principal, silence. 2 days before opening bell, I finally phoned the district. When can I pick up keys and a badge? That night my inbox lit up. A scolding from my admin for going over her head, and a curt time to collect credentials. The room they'd assigned me made my stomach drop. It had been a storage unit. Desks stacked like Tetris, 8 filing cabinets, more than 100 chairs teetering in towers. The only thing in order was the dust. Our custodian, bless the unsung heroes, showed up with a dolly and a grin. We hauled, sorted, swept. By midnight, it looked like a classroom again. Hurdle 1 cleared. I told myself the worst was over. I had no idea the first bell would ring like an alarm. Day 1 dawned and my inbox was empty. No schedule, no rotation, no clue which classes I'd see. I emailed the principal, politely, "Could you share the master schedule? A digital copy would be perfect." Minutes later came her reply, "Stop pressuring and bullying me." Bullying? I answered carefully, apologized if I'd come across as pushy, and reiterated I needed to know who was walking through my door and when. At 8:10 a.m., 10 minutes after school began, the schedule arrived. My jaw hit the desk. I'd been double booked, 2 classes at the same time, 7 45-minute periods a day, every class every day, and a 30-minute lunch that was actually lunch duty. That's 46 kids crammed into one art room with blades, glue, and acrylics. I stepped into the hall and asked if we could adjust blocks so I had transition time to reset materials and avoid losing instruction. She appeared with a class lined up behind me and barked, "It's your first year. You don't know what you need. Deal with it." I closed the door, took a breath, and did something I should have done sooner. I opened the district contract. There it was in black and white, class size language. If a class exceeds 30 students, the teacher is assigned an educational assistant. Not may, shall. I printed the page, highlighted it, and brought it to her office after a month and a half of juggling 46 bodies and counting band-aids like currency. "No money," she snapped. "Make do or quit." So I made do. I arrived when the morning custodian unlocked at 6 a.m., left when the night janitor clicked off lights at 9 p.m., and spent weekends planning, grading, calling families, logging referrals. I ate granola bars over sinks. Paint dried on my cuticles. When my first evaluation came due, I braced for impact. Late starts, no prep, unsafe ratios. She smiled and marked me satisfactory across the board. I exhaled, confused, grateful, wary. Later I'd recognize it for what it was. A breadcrumb trail to something sharper. A paper trail that could be yanked closed like a snare. The union, I figured, would help. I called, documented the double classes, cited the contract language, and laid out the safety issues. Capacity, egress, knives. "We'll handle it," they promised. Weeks passed. Nothing changed. Thanksgiving week arrived, conferences done, 2 days respite ahead. I went to a friend's potluck determined to talk about anything but school. Between casserole and pie, I chatted with an old acquaintance and his new husband. "How's the first year?" they asked. I laughed too hard and admitted the kids' creativity was saving me, but I couldn't give them the time they deserved. 2 classes at once in 45 minutes. That's triage. The husband's eyebrow flicked. "Which school?" he asked lightly. "Oh, just down the road," I said, and named it. Harmless, I thought. Then he set his glass down with a quiet clink and asked a few very specific questions about rotations, duty coverage, assistant language. Something in my ribs tightened. I had the odd feeling that I just stepped on a hidden switch. Monday at 8:05 a.m., the principal stormed into my room. "How dare you?" she hissed, cheeks flushed, voice low because children were hanging coats. "If you ever go around me again, I'll make sure you never work in education." I stood there blinking, adrenaline hot and stupid. I didn't even know what around meant until later. That afternoon at staff meeting, she announced a pilot schedule aligned with best practices. One class at a time for an hour, art twice weekly instead of daily. My students cheered. I could set up without bleeding minutes. I left at 4 p.m. for the first time all year. For a week, the building felt 10 degrees warmer. Then the shadows lengthened. I caught her peeking through my door window, hovering in the hall, popping in unannounced. Extroverted kids shuffled in quiet, eyes wet. "I don't want you to go," one sobbed into a sleeve. "Go where?" I asked, genuinely stunned. "Principal said you don't want to be here." The day before winter break, she entered with our building rep in tow and slid a document across my table. A teacher support plan. Renewal at year's end would depend on growth. The rep giggled. They walked out. Something in me snapped. I went home, read every line, and stopped feeling scared. I started making a plan. Winter break arrived with the kind of bone-deep fatigue that makes coffee feel ornamental. An old acquaintance and his husband invited me for drinks. I tried to keep the conversation on movies and travel, anything but school. Then the husband asked, almost casually, "Did the double class issue improve?" I blinked. "You spoke to my principal?" He smiled. "I'm her supervising administrator for that cohort." My throat went dry. He saw my face change and his tone shifted from cordial to alert. "What's going on?" So I told him. All of it. The threats, the schedule that broke safety policy, the denial of an educational assistant guaranteed by contract, the surprise support plan with our building rep cackling on her way out, and the unannounced pop-ins that left kids crying because she told them I was leaving. His expression cycled from concern to shock to a slow, simmering anger. "I always wondered why that building churned staff," he said. "Here's what we'll do. Don't warn her. I'll attend the next observation." January's first observation day, she swept in empty-handed, wearing the kind of smile people practice in mirrors. A minute later, he walked in behind her with a laptop and parked himself at a side table. She froze, glanced at her bare hands, and asked if I had a notepad. "No spare notebooks," I said lightly. "But here's some poster paper. Also, please avoid disrupting instructional time next visit." He began typing, and for the first time all year, she didn't have a script. After that, I documented everything. When she sauntered in at 9:15 despite a 7:45 contract start, I texted him. If he was nearby, he'd drop by and make a contemporaneous note. Twice a week like clockwork, for a month we caught late arrivals with no leave forms. He even sent an HR partner to stand in our lobby at 9 o'clock one morning. The foyer was still principal-less. Meanwhile, I tugged at another loose thread. We were Title I. After-school care was supposed to be free to families. The district reimbursed the provider. Yet parents kept telling me they couldn't afford it. The provider, conveniently renewed year after year. Also conveniently living with our principal. Conflict of interest wasn't a gray area. It was a neon sign. I started small. Gentle conversations at dismissal. "You know aftercare is free for our campus, right?" Shocked faces. I printed a clean flyer, website, forms, which boxes to tick. Word moved faster than any memo. Parents compared receipts and realized they'd been paying cash for what the district already funded. PDA night came like a storm front. I took my seat in the back, hands folded, while murmurs turned into questions, and questions into heat. I didn't need to say a word. The room would do it for me. And once parents start pulling records, auditors aren't far behind. The second half of the year felt like a documentary with timestamps. Central office leaders began learning walks through our hallways. Auditors arrived with clipboards, then with laptops. HR asked for time logs and procurement files. The union, which had ghosted my double-class complaint, suddenly discovered capes and tried to pose as both hero and victim. My boss's boss sent me a 2-line email that made my shoulders drop for the first time in months. Support plan removed from your file. Principal barred from further observations/evaluations. Aftercare? The sweetheart deal vanished overnight. The district installed a vetted provider. Families stopped choosing between a paycheck and a pickup window. Inside my classroom, the air changed. With one class per hour, kids built worlds. Movie posters that reverse-engineered character arcs, comic books that translated feelings into panels and speech bubbles. I left at 4 o'clock, locked the door, and still had energy to cook. The principal kept orbiting, but the gravity had shifted. For the first time, I felt like the building might belong to the children again. Then, as spring assignments loomed, she tried one last time to pull the rug, and I realized the finale would be loud. She called me into her office with a solemn face. "Our budget won't support an art position next year," she intoned. "You might want to seek employment elsewhere." I smiled. "Nice try. My position is funded by a state bond, separate from your site budget." I stood. "If there's nothing else, I'll get back to instruction." The door clicked behind me. Inside, something heavy slammed against wood, followed by creative vocabulary. Weeks later, our talent show doubled as a gallery. One of my boldest students asked to share his comic. A drawn conversation where the principal told kids I didn't want to be there and they should give me trouble before I left. He'd written his own ending. Students rallying to change the story. Halfway through, the principal rushed the stage, hands outstretched. A parent's shoe arced from the 4th row and thudded near her feet. Gasps, then a hush made of fury. Parents weren't just angry about aftercare anymore. They were angry for their children, who'd been used as weapons. The next morning, the building felt like a pressure cooker with the lid rattling. Everyone knew what was coming. We just didn't know which microphone she'd choose. On the last day, after buses pulled away, her voice cracked over the intercom. A resignation dressed as a transfer. She was needed elsewhere. She'd miss almost all of us. No one clapped. Later, curiosity took me to LinkedIn. She'd landed an admin job an hour away, lasted a year, then stepped down to teach English in another district. Consequences don't always fall like pianos. Sometimes they're a series of smaller drops that add up to a different skyline. I stayed. My kids kept drawing courage into existence. The aftercare line became predictable, not desperate. My evaluations came from people who actually read the contract they signed. And in a folder on my desk is a copy of that student's comic. The last panel, a splash page where the art hero helps the school remember what it is for, while the angry principal exits frame left. That's the ending I keep. Now I want to hear from you. What would you have done in my shoes? Gone quiet and endured, or documented, escalated, and let the truth do its work? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading. If the story resonated, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next one. Share this with anyone who's ever had a bad boss, because sometimes the best revenge is a paper trail.